Hey, greetings everybody. This is Wesley Pepper. This is the Art Lexcia podcast. It is episode 91. It is kind of early in the morning in South Africa, but that's all good. And before I introduce this week's guest, just a few quick words. On last week, we had a bit of a technical nightmare, man. And I'm actually tired of pointing fingers towards that, but it's just been a scheduling thing, and the government's load shedding bullshit has not been helping. So yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, it's not that I'm really sorry, it's just how it is. But before we get into it, man, yeah, I mean, we're recording this thing on the 10th of October. If you guys know that there's been more death in the arts community. I mean, Samson Nkosi passed away on, I think, 2 days ago.
Maybe 4 years ago. Yeah.
And yeah, man, I knew him. I've actually got drunk with him maybe twice, maybe 3 times. I knew his work. I haven't really collaborated with him, but I know I've done at least 3 shows, group shows where his work was. Really sad what happened to him. So this is just,
yeah,
tough
man,
one.
it's very sad. I mean, I'm very familiar with his work. The last time I saw him actually was this year. We were at Kitchener's. And you know, he works a lot. Like, he really produced a lot of art. We'll definitely miss him.
Yeah, it was very, very prolific.
I'm very sad, yeah.
Man, it was really, really sad story. I actually heard it was a heart attack, so that sucks. And it actually happened 2 days after the opening of the show. So
exactly,
we just felt it was just, you know, we've actually mentioned most of art that passed away on this platform. Yeah, man, I'm thinking we'll probably do like another full-on
episode on that. So please check out his work. I'm not sure where his work is showing, but we'll keep you guys updated. Please check it out, and you know.
Yeah. If my memory serves, he's got a show currently now in Joburg. But anyway, I think it's just such a sad thing. But anyway, man, you know, yeah, may his soul rest in peace. Anyway, my brother, today's episode, we have a brother all the way from Texas. He's very, very far away, but clearly, if you look at him, you can see his heart is definitely based here on the continent. We have Asar Alkebulan all the way from Texas. It's in Austin, Texas, correct?
Yes, Austin, Texas.
Yeah, my brother. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming through. You know, I met Asar actually through Consciousness. He gave us some of his writing, and we'll touch base on some of that. He's a podcaster too. It's about 9 o'clock in the evening on a Sunday evening there, your side, my king. We really enjoy I really enjoy the background. It's
beautiful.
It's like you right at home, very West African. So yeah. Firstly, let's start off with good evening. How are you doing?
I'm good here in Texas, United States. I'm in Austin, Texas. I was actually born not too far from here. Grew up and, attended school, and I went to graduated from Texas A&M University, which literally I was born and grew up in the shadow of the university, and that's where I went to school. So I left there and I went to DC. Back in those days, it was known as Chocolate City, with the vanilla suburbs, predominantly Black population, but it has changed through gentrification over the years. And after 30 years, a few years ago, after 30 years, I ended up back in Texas at the University of Texas at Austin, which held a 117-year rivalry with Texas A&M University, where I'm a graduate of. So that's kind of ironic that I'm here being Texas A&M Aggies. I'm here with the Longhorns. So, yeah, that's where I am.
Sure. Yeah, man. Interesting. And you're a writer also. And I mean, I enjoy your podcast. There's a very storytelling element in what you do. Obviously, you're a storyteller. Can you tell us about that? How did it start out? And the age of the podcast, it comes from a certain space, like, old America. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So you say that I'm a writer. I like to call myself a writer. And the way that I met Wesley and my man, Consciousness Magazine, I was living in Nigeria at the time. I lived there for about 3 years. After I left DC, I ended up in Lagos, Nigeria, after traveling there for like 20 years at the time. And I published several pieces about what I was experiencing in Africa, living in West Africa on the African continent. But moving forward so I thank you for that, saying that I'm a writer or a storyteller, because I say that I'm that, but I don't know if other people consider me that.
No, you definitely. And before you continue, UncleAsar, what did you find interesting? Because we haven't really seen those papers, but we'll check them out. But what was interesting living in Nigeria? Which year?
It was a host of things. I lived in Lagos from 2013 to 2016. It was a host of different things. I wrote on patriarchy, West African patriarchy. I wrote on some of the laws that were being passed. I visited the ninth largest slum, but the largest slum built on water in the world. Ninth largest slum in the world, largest slum built on water in the world, which is Makoko, which is a beautiful people in Nigeria. So I did a 2-piece article on that, and many other things. Yeah.
Okay.
So you asked me about Jollyville.
Yes.
So the podcast is actually the brainchild of a guy I used to work with at the University of Texas. He's since moved on to another university. He's doing some other things. But we worked hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And during the pandemic, every time we talk, about students or whatever, we just get into this personal conversation. What are you doing? What are you doing? I said, I was a writer, storyteller, I was a poet, this kind of thing. And he said, well, hey man, I'm starting this podcast and it's going to be, this and that. Would you like to be a part of it? Now, I'm thinking, yeah, because I'm not doing anything else. And I had just moved back to Texas. I didn't know anybody. And now we're shut in, sequestered. And I was like, yeah, man, I want to move outside of my comfort zone, but I really want to stay in my comfort zone, but be outside of my comfort zone, if that makes any sense. So he came back to me and he was like, okay, yeah, so we're going to do this thing. What would you like to do? So being a Pan Afrikanist, I was like, anything I do, I want to do some type of, social activism, and I'm trying to really get the guy off me, right? Because I really, really don't want to do it, And so he came back to me and he was like, well, that's great. We'll do this comedy make-believe stuff, and then we'll move into the real world and we'll let you interview people who are doing community building. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm trapped now. So then he's like, well, what do you want to call that segment? And I'm like, oh, I got him here. I'll say community beat, something very, pro-Black, And he was like, I love it. So we started doing it. So basically, Jollyville Radio, KJVR, as we call it, is a semi-fictional, but it's an actual neighborhood in Austin, Texas, where this guy lived. Michael Croce is his name, and he just created this semi-fictional village of people and happenings and this type of thing, and comedy and skits and sketches. And at the very end, I would come on and interview people from all over the United States, and we interviewed some people in the UK. We interviewed people in New Zealand. We interviewed a guy in Hawaii, and we interviewed Wesley. So, it's an international segment. And the first year, which was the first year of the pandemic, we were doing it every week. Every week there was a different person to interview. And we had to come up with sketches, and we were writing sketches, and we had actors and, all of his friends and and everything going on. And then the second year, and it's not based on year, it was like We did it for a period of time, and then we decided to take a break, and then we started up again. So then we started doing it like every other week, and then finally we were doing it like once a month, and then recently we just started the fifth. I think it's the fifth season.
Okay.
And we're going to record everything. We're going to write everything and record everything all at once in a couple of months, record it and everything, and then just push it out. So yeah, publish it. Yeah.
No, guys, check it out. I mean, I enjoy the podcast. It reminds me of theater in radio, man. Like, I really miss that. And I love how you deal also with like very ordinary issues, you know, everyday issues at the salon or, you know, chilling with friends. Like, I really, really commend that. So at the university, do you teach? Do you lecture?
No. I am when I started at the university, I was in financial aid. I'm not sure if you have financial aid in South Africa. I know it's not in other parts.
Yeah.
Okay, financial aid. So I worked there, and I recently transitioned to the Department of Mechanical and Engineering, and I am a senior academic advisor there. So, and interesting enough, right now we're in the midst of registration for the spring. So my calendar from morning until close, it's full. Yeah. Working with students, trying to get their schedules and classes chosen for their classes in the spring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you know what, UncleAsar, and you'll understand this because dealing with students, it's another thing. You know, I feel like, sorry, I'm just talking about your podcast right now because, you know, that is you, man. It at least keeps the creativity, imagination going because, you know, you're dealing with images that you make up in your mind. I mean, I'm a writer, I'm a poet myself. So I really appreciate how you capture and fascinate young minds, especially when they live on screens and sort of come lazy. You know what I mean?
My career, when I left Texas several years ago in the last millennium, I won't give a date, but I'm sure it's obvious by my gray hair. But I ended up in Washington, D.C., and I went into the nonprofit or NGO, probably what you would be akin to what you know as NGO, but nonprofit youth and family services. So I worked with young people in our people in poor neighborhoods around Washington, D.C. And being a Pan Afrikanist, I infused all of my knowledge and my creativity as a poet into that work. So it's something that I've always done. And I try to bring part of that to Jollyville. And I also try to bring it to the students that I'm working with now. And incidentally, you know, I kind of puff my chest out when I say this and try to make my mother proud. I am one of the co-presidents of the Black Faculty and Staff Association at the University of Texas at Austin. So I'm trying to do some positive transformational work there.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Actually, let me just comment this. Let's take it from there. If you can just give us our listeners. So clearly, Pan Afrikanism has reshaped your processes and your and moving forward. And I know it resonates a lot. And you mentioned of like working in more let me say poorer neighborhoods or less. And you also mentioned something of the chocolate city that's now gentrified. Those are things that we're dealing with very much here in South Africa as well. So let's just start to take it a little from the back. How I guess, man, from an African American, I know from a few collaborations I've done in the past and so forth. I know it's the lack of identity or not being able to identify with this Western headspace that America is all about. I guess what is it, or what, or rather, where did it all start for you, man? And what is it about the continent that really resonated for you that you said, oh, I've got to go to Nigeria to go look, learn, and study, and so forth. And how did you sort of use that I would say connecting with your roots, and I use it as a loose term really because I know it's a very layered thing. How did you use all that? How did all those influences, or what was it of those influences that shaped you? And moving forward, and and like you say, you're using it in all these in the form of social activism, digital activism, and so forth.
So the odd thing, the ironical thing is that attending a predominantly white university, or what they call now predominantly white institution, Texas A&M University in the mid to late 80s, that is where I gained my socio-political and historical-cultural consciousness. Funny as it is. In the late 80s, I'm sure you know what was going on in South Africa. Jesse Jackson was running for president here. Everything was going on in South Africa. All those things were coming to crescendo. And then I read a book, Malcolm X Speaks. It was a collection of all of his speeches. And something in that lit something in me. And I wanted, that proverbial question that everyone asks when you're about to graduate university, what are you going to do now? And after reading Malcolm X, I said, I want to be a human rights activist, because he had already taken our struggle out of the United States to the world stage. And in his words, he said, you don't take your case to the criminal, you take your criminal to court. So it becomes a human rights issue. And that resonated with me. And I was like, okay. So when people ask me, well, what do you want to do when you graduate? I said, I'm a human rights activist. Of course, I fell, miserably short of that. But that's what led me to DC, because I felt like that is the place where world policy is disseminated. So I made a promise to myself that if I were ever in a financial situation where I could, I would wear African clothing every day. And because that was the style, it wasn't the style, but it was more accepted. Everybody was wearing different things. So I met this cat from Nigeria, and incidentally, it gave me access to African clothing. So I started buying pieces and I started wearing it every day, because the transformation came from inside out. So it made it easy for me to do that. Now, I didn't ask anybody any questions. Can I wear this on the job, or can I wear this to this event? It wasn't a question for me. And then many people would ask me, well, how many of those outfits do you have? And I'm like, how many jeans and t-shirts do you have? This is what I wear. I wore it to work. I wore it to work out. I wore it to the club. 24/7. This is what I wore. So then I started traveling with this guy and to Nigeria, and we started traveling like every other year, and sometimes we went twice a year. And I ended up traveling in Ghana, and they established this international medical missions, and I became a part of that. And we went to did medical missions in Nigeria, and then but just to backtrack, because again of my Pan-Afrikanism and my knowledge of Africa and working in underserved communities in the US and working with our people, I infused all of that, the knowledge I knew, where I was coming from with poetry and rap. I actually wanted to be a rapper when I was in 1979, when I was like 12, when Rapper's Delight, the first international rap record. I tried to learn every rap song on the radio, and so I took the poetry and I started writing raps and things like that. So I used the rap, the call and response, poetry, chants, all of that in my work with Black youth and going forward. So.
Okay, what you say about appearance, like it's very, very important. I think it's important what the eye sees, like that's how you show Black love, because unfortunately we are making people rich for no reason, by following these brands. I mean, it does nothing to the Black community. And being a human rights activist, right, reminded me of the public lecture that we spoke about earlier on of Sol Blakey, who was a human rights activist, actually a language activist as well. And in the lecture by Professor William Dlamini, he spoke about the accountability, you know, of our leader. There's no accountability in our political story. Like, people do whatever they want. Yeah, no accountability. Everybody does what they want. But like, how do you guys deal with that? You know, or how do you see it in your current position in the US?
Well, unfortunately,
yeah.
So go ahead.
Go on.
So I was saying, unfortunately, in the U.S., that's not a problem. Oddly enough, last winter, the entire state of Texas was without water and electricity because of a winter storm, and that was like unheard of. So people actually got a taste of what's it like in the rest of the world. But living in Nigeria, fortunately, I was living in a state with some friends where we had 2 large generators. It was a brand new estate. And if the power went out, 30 seconds later, we had power. But for the people of Nigeria, that's a very difficult problem. You mentioned, you exaggerate 2 weeks. That's not an exaggeration in somewhere like Nigeria. They may go for months in some areas without any electricity. And then the funny thing is, well, not the funny thing, but the sad thing is, they will still be charged for electricity. And you asked before, what was I writing about? I wrote about some of these things. How is it that the largest Black nation on earth, with its wealth of resources, that the people don't have running water to bathe with or to cook with, or the children don't have light in the evening to study by? I mean, that is, in West Africa, they talk a lot about abomination. That is an abomination. I put that in one of the pieces. That is the abomination, for that to exist. And then you have leaders who are living very opulent lives, and they're jet setting across the world, and they have estates in the US and in the UK and in different parts of the world. And you go back to their home countries and the people are suffering. This is unacceptable. So how do we hold our leaders accountable? Well, when the youth are the ones who will have to do the work. The old guys like me, I cannot run the police anymore. Part of the reason that I came back from Nigeria was because I felt like I was escaping the Black Lives Matter movement after, during all of that time. I was Nigerian. I'm hearing about brothers being gunned down every day. And I'm like, I need to be there, but I'm not the one to be at the I live right down the street from the White House when I lived in D.C., but I'm not the one to be there to trample me. But when the youth come out in Nigeria, what does the government do? They gun them down. These are our own people, our leaders, African leaders, gunning down the youth of the nation. I remember reading somewhere, and I can't remember the name of the book, but there was a passage in it that said, tell the man with the gun, or tell the man who gave the man the gun, that if he teaches our people to fear, he renders the whole nation defenseless. It's as simple as that.
You mentioned something there, Asar, which I found actually quite relevant to 2022. You said that earlier on that Texas was also, you also had water and electricity cuts. That's a pattern that's going on all over the globe, actually, in the UK as well. And it's quite rife here. Honestly, my personal take is a failure of all government. I think they should have planned this at least 20, 25 years ago, which they didn't. And it's not like they didn't have the information. I think this is all by design, which is why I find that we had a guest, I think it was 3 weeks ago. He works in the political space. He's also a very good writer, academic, and so forth. And one of the points that we came up is how to organize people in a digital space, which is also why, as a podcaster, I'm always looking to see who's doing what all over the globe, really, and seeing how different creatives, thinkers, and so forth are using their country's resources and their headspace and so forth, and how they packaging that basically in a digital space. What I want to know, man, based off that, there, given your travels and so forth, given that this problem that we're dealing with, it's actually the first time in my knowledge in global history that we actually all Western and so-called third world countries are all eating off the same plate. My brother, how are you guys using, or how are you in particular, and your university and your other contemporaries using the digital space? Are you trying to organize people in spreading consciousness, in spreading ideas, ideologies? Are you using? How are you using the digital space to do that?
So, yeah. And also, so just to add on that, UncleAsar, great question, Wex, because I was interested, who's your audience in Juggerville Radio, you know? Who's your audience? Yeah.
I don't even think we, I don't even think we identify anybody who listens, who would want to listen. There's no real marketing campaign behind Jollyville. We just do it. And actually it's a vehicle for creativity and community, meaning Michael Croser created it to maintain connections with his friends and to make new friends during the pandemic. So anything in addition to that is a plus. There's no marketing campaign. We are on social media, that type of thing, but there's no real audience. Going to Wesley, for me, I'm not the guy who shouts from the mountaintop as a Pan-African. I'm more of the guy who, for lack of a better term, leads by example. I wear African clothing. If you initiate a conversation with me, I will tell you why. And then I will probably launch into a rant about Africa and African history. And we did, we didn't start here as slaves. We have a whole millennia of history in Africa. This is who we are. Mm-hmm. I'll go from there. If I'm working with students and any issue or topic that comes up, it's basically the same thing, because young people are very curious and they will see the way that I dress, the way that I comport myself, this type of thing, and they will ask questions. What about your name? What about the clothing that you're wearing? This and I'll use that as an opportunity to a learning opportunity, if you will. With the Black Faculty and Staff Association, which I'm one of the leaders of, I try to do the same things. I infuse African ritual. We do libation. I try to do call and response type activities. I bring in issues centering on us as African people in the world throughout the diaspora. So how does social media play a part in that? That organization has social media. I try to do some things there, get some things published there, what we're doing. With Jollyville, not so much, but we do have the social media aspect. And hey man, I'm old school, I'm not really the social media. I'm not even it's WhatsApp social media. That's all I'm doing, but I understand the power of it. And I wish that, I'm not gonna say I wish that because I don't have the patience for it. And I don't want all my business out there, but I understand the power of it. And I think it has been used, especially with the Black Lives Movement, getting people into the street, getting people encouraged about a certain issue and showing up at places and getting out to vote and, protesting this and protesting that and this kind of thing. So yeah, it's very powerful medium. Back in my day, rappers or whomever would sell CDs and tapes. Well, it was tapes. It wasn't even CDs at that point. They were selling tapes out of their cars, and selling CDs on the corner. But with social media and YouTube and all of this stuff, you have a direct line to the people. And if you're not using that, especially if you're born, the young guy that works in our office, I had a problem with my office phone. It's a landline. And I called him into my office. I asked the young man, I said, hey, come here, man. Can you help me with this phone? He's like, sure. He walked into my office. He's like, oh, I wasn't raised with a phone like that. if you have access to and you have influence on social media, use it. What are we doing? Why does it take an old cat like me to say, can we do something with social media? You should be coming to me and saying, well, Uncle, we got this thing over here. Can you do, or can you help us, or do you think, you know what I'm saying? So social media, man.
I agree, and you're actually raising some interesting points there.
Uncle Asar, you are truly old school. I see that, but you're right, man. I feel like the OG, but I feel you're right there that we are not. I also feel like the younger generation is really not utilizing the space, to spread Black love, basically, because it is a way of life currently. I know we were forced into the space during COVID and battled with the, how do we use this online space to exist, especially with the rituals that you mentioned earlier on, is it okay to perform these rituals in public, How do we connect physically as people, but also how do we connect, use this big platform to connect, honestly, with you guys in the US right now, like we are sharing ideas and exchanging, our experience, because I think it can be used as a very great tool, the social media, to strengthen the African continent. I know, like you guys, when you have your African History Month, I know House of Siza would also focus on that because a lot happened in February in our own history, So yeah, I think it's a thing, and I don't know what we are not getting right, because there are messages spread out through social media, like social media is dictating lifestyles. What to buy, how to live, what to read. But somehow, I don't know what's going on. It seems like the other content is not really welcomed. Yeah.
So, what we should be doing, as I hate to tell people what we should be doing, but what I would like for us to do, what I would like for the youth to do, is to use social media or the platform, whatever you have it, like you said, it tells you what to read, what to wear. We should be connecting and reading. What is it that I would want to read and know about Africa? From this on this side, right? Because there's been a number done on us to reject Africa. There's only war, famine, disease, and violence in Africa. So we should be connecting to understand what is actually happening there. How are we still African? You see what I'm saying? What are the similarities? You go to West Africa, it's no different than here. It's just a different manifestation of the same thing. The food, the language, the structure of the language. And I've taught all of this shared all of this in my work with young people, the similarities and the connections that we have throughout the diaspora. That's what we should be using social media for, to build a world unity among African people. Pan-Afrikanism should be strengthened through this social media, whatever you call it, these platforms, instead of who's driving a Bugatti, who's popping bottles, who's wearing whatever labels. You should be wearing Africa across your chest instead of somebody's brand, if that's what you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? So,
but also that is a way of taking care of the economy of the society. If we buy each other's clothes and eat each other's food, and that's how we grow our community. Anyway, that's how Black communities live.
Malcolm X, I mentioned Malcolm X earlier. He talked about the economics of Black nationalism. This is exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
In our own community, or like I did for 20 years, the only clothing that I bought besides underwear and socks, African clothing from Africa. Everything that I bought, except for shoes and underwear, I bought it from Africa. I'm not telling it. I'm not trying to tell everybody to do that, but I'm saying if you're looking for an avenue to spend your dollars, if you can't even spend them in your own community here in the U.S. in black stores and establishments or whatever, spend it in Africa. I mean, and we can share that information across social media. Who's buying and who's selling? It's just as simple. I just, you have to forgive me. I get excited. I'm a Pan Afrikanist, man. I get excited.
Yeah,
but
this is the platform for that.
This is the platform for that. And I mean, I think a lot of white people can also, like, if they wonder how to apologize, buy from Africa.
There it is. There it is.
So you don't know how to apologize. It's not your fault.
As the sister said, there's a difference between a contribution and a commitment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You want to call yourself an ally because the term in America. I'm an ally. Okay, what is the extent of your allyship? A contribution or a commitment?
Commitment. Yeah. Sure. This is fire, guys. This is fire.
I just want to commend you on all of the work that you've done in the name of Pan-Afrikanism, in the name of Black love. And I, when Wesley asked me to do this, I was like, I ain't nobody. I don't even know what do you want me to talk about? His commitment to the struggle. I love you, brother, and you brought this beautiful sister on with you to co-host with you. I love you, sister, and just continue to do the work that you're doing. It inspires me, and I know that it inspires our brothers and sisters around the world.
Mm-hmm. No, give thanks, my brother, and you inspire us. That's why we wanted to celebrate today, because that's another thing we do on this show. We really celebrate the great minds and thinkers and doers in our Black community. And thank you for gracing us with your presence and sharing the knowledge that.
Thanks. Thank you for being loud and almost unapologetic.
And we love you too.
Yeah, man, I just want to raise one point, and it's sort of also like in closing, and we can just wrap it up from here, because this line by mine, this internet line here seems a bit unstable, which is something else we need to work on, because this is clearly something which is happening all over the world. Like if entrepreneurs and like-minded people can connect on a platform like this and look for possible solutions, because these are problems I think we can solve. And talking about solving problems, you were mentioning there of like Black people investing in their own community. We are actually very conscious of that, and the technology we are developing is to facilitate that process. Is to take Black. I will just put African, because I think I'll exclude a host of people in the same point as just Black. Because I also wanted to be a bit more inclusive. Is to take that talent and to sell it, or rather to sell it, to bring it to people literally on your device, which is for the click of a few buttons. You'll experience well, not smell, but that will be coming once technology has developed. That's something we're looking at, but to bring that experience directly to your device. So, people with your type of energy and vision, we need more, guys, and we want to connect more, and not just on sharing ideas, but also talents, perspectives, and so forth, which is very much needed. Thanks a lot for talking to that, and us not prompting and for us not prompting that. My brother, sort of like in closing, like I know this is like very like just is not planned or anything, but you did say you were a poet, right? You did say you were writing. Like, do you have anything to share with us? Do you have any poetry, any creative expression that you can share with our listeners? I know I didn't ask you in the beginning, but I just had to drop that bomb.
Yeah, please.
So when I was in DC, I used to read different places around DC as a poet, and I got the chance to meet a guy that I would listen to on the radio. His name is Kenny Carroll, and I donned him the poet laureate of DC. He was an older guy. He was older than me, and he was from that 70s type groove. And he was, I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Gil Scott-Heron, The Revolution Would Not Be Televised. That's the commercial. But he was in that, just very analytical in the way that he put words and stuff together. So Women's History Month, March of, I swear to you, it was 91 or 2. And we were at Howard University, and it was him and a cadre of other poets that was in that circle. And I had this poem that I wrote about Black women. It was called "I Love Black Women," and he said, because of the Women's History Month program, he came up to me and he said, "Brother, we want you to read that poem about Black women." And I said, "I don't know it." He said, "Look, if you call yourself a poet, you either know your stuff or carry it with you." So from that day forward, I have poems, so I will share this with the Art Lexica. It's not the Black woman poet. It's not the Black woman poet. Mm-hmm. But this is my first revolutionary or Black consciousness poem that I wrote when I arrived in the nation's capital, U.S. nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And the title of it is, "Who Are You, Nigger Boy? I am life and all its color. Its breath is sight before no other, my sister, the mother, man, and brother. This fact is known to few, not most. The man he lies, a power he boasts, while blood is stained the ivory coast. But now my duty to teach the small of pride and strength and truth of all the words and stones in pyramid stars." That was
Woo! Woo! Oh yeah. That's the word power right there. You should perform more, brother. You should come host poetry readings in the garden. You should join us virtually one of these days. Would love to host you.
Oh, I've been promising Wesley and Karabo that I'm coming to South Africa. I'm still coming.
Yeah. No, thank you, brother, for sharing that. How do we follow you and the work that you do? Where can we get a hold of you, just for our listeners as well, to continue this conversation,
Well, you can, Wesley has my information. I'm not on social media. I'm on LinkedIn and WhatsApp.
That's social media. What are you talking about? So you're on LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn. It's not even up to date.
UncleAsar. Or it's Asar Alkebulan.
UncleAsar. I like the way you say it. Keep saying it.
I told you, Wes, that I'm saying it funny. I told him that. How do you?
You're not. Actually, no. I love it.
Okay.
That's the way they say it in West Africa. UncleAsar.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's connect, family, and thanks again for your time, my brother. This has been
yeah, man, much love to the work and the effort you guys you're putting in. As I said in the beginning, in the middle of the show, your energy resonates. We're feeling it right here in SA in the early hours of the morning as well, and it's highly appreciated. And also, what I appreciate, is the support that you're giving to young African creators like myself and others. Yeah, man, we are very interested in creating that network. And controlling this digital space and controlling it to our narrative and to our beat. That's something we're working very, very hard on. So much love and much respect to all the support for that. And to the listeners, remember, guys, all social media platforms, YouTube. I always get them in
Facebook.
We actually on Pan. I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but I know last week's recording was about this and that. But we're on this new level called Pan, which is African-based podcast. So please catch us there. We also Patreon. So if you want to send us financial love, you can definitely hook us up there. And so it's all the others. So Twitter, Facebook is Wesley Pepper. It's the Art Lexcia podcast. The mouthful. Sometimes I get a bit tongue-tied when I put in all those shout-outs. But yeah, much love, Siza, and we can wrap it up.
No, man. Much love to you guys. Let's continue to connect and spreading Black love. We love you guys. Thank you for saying that. It's normal to love each other. Love you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your week. And everyone listeners, we'll catch you in 7 days
later.